Hi class, I want to go through what we talked about in class about discrimination. I've decided that I don't want to make you go through the distinction of defenses for both intent discrimination and non-intent. And so I'm going to go through what I want you to write on the exam so that it's very clear to you. First of all, we talked about discrimination, and we said with all discrimination laws that there's intentional and there's non-intentional. And with the intentional, we talked about age, and we said, for instance, with police officers, making them leave the force at 50 or 55. And we said that the more danger there would be to the public, the more that the courts will find that they have a BFOQ. And then non-intentional would be a situation where, for instance, you have a job requirement that in fact has a disparate impact on a protected group. Let's say you have a job requirement, a weight requirement that you lift 60 pounds, and as a result, only males are able to meet that. That has a disparate impact, but that's not illegal if in fact it's required for the job. And so what I want you to remember with discrimination, and this is what you should look at and answer on the exam, is what's the essence of the business? If the essence of the business involves lifting 60 pounds, if the essence of the business means that you have to run at a certain pace or had to have a certain mental acuity, then in fact the employer has a defense. The plaintiff can always come back, the person in the protected class can always come back and say pretext, BS. But then they would have the burden of proof of establishing that in fact it was pretextual, that the defense of the employer is not true. Now on the exam, these are the non-discrimination laws that are going to be you're going to be tested on. The first is the ADEA, which is the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. And remember, it can be intentional or non, and that it protects people 40 and above. The next is Title VII. As I told you in class, always remember that this is an act that protects the employee from employer discrimination, not customers, not anyone else, the employee from employer discrimination. I showed you the protected classes. You need to memorize them or put them on your 3x5 card in order for the short answer period of the class. Test. And then the ADA, the American with Disabilities Act. Here what I want you to remember are these terms. First of all, the plaintiff has to be disabled. The employee has to be disabled, which means a long-term disability, not a broken leg, but an amputated leg. Next, they still have to be able to do the essential functions of the job. So if you have a police officer that has to, or let's say a firefighter that has to be able to run in and out of buildings, and you have someone and bring people in and out of the building, and you also have to dress hose, then probably you're not going to be able to have someone that has an amputated arm. And then accommodation. They can ask for a reasonable accommodation, but they can't ask for an accommodation that would be an unreasonable hardship on the employer. Like perhaps it would make it cost too much money. It's okay to ask for a ramp to go up into the office, but I want you to see that things like wheelchairs and eyeglasses, those are called personal accommodations, and the employer is not responsible for those. Now, drifting away from discrimination for just a minute, I also want you to remember that all employees are either just cause or they're at will. And most of you are at will. And that means you can be terminated for good reason, bad reason, just not an illegal reason, like discrimination. And then just cause on the exam will typically be union-based. That all collective bargaining agreements typically say that the employer has to have good and sufficient reason or just cause in order to terminate the employee. Thank you very much.